Okay, so today's episode is all about resistance and specifically resistance that we feel when we are in this liminal space, when we are navigating the murky waters between an old chapter and a new chapter. So recently, for a while actually, I feel like I've been navigating this space that feels kind of like a waiting room. And in some ways, it's felt like I have just had to sit with this uncomfortable feeling of not truly knowing what's next for me. And this is all come about because I've been radically following my intuition and making decisions that have changed my life in foundational ways. So you might be navigating the same thing. And today I want to talk about the resistance that happens when we're moving through the old to the new. And basically, how can we move through that? How can we surrender to this moment in time where we're meant to learn something before we get to our next chapter? So let's get into it. So I have been understanding more so how to actually ride with the wave of uncertainty. And the thing that happens when you're in between two chapters is we receive these opportunities or tests from the universe to really embody our next level selves. But it can be difficult because we're we're letting go of old patterns, habits, mindsets, old ways of being, but we're not quite fully comfortable in the new ways of expressing ourselves. So in this in between, I feel as though this is like rejection therapy. It's almost like boot camp to potentially get rejected, um, or have opportunities fall through multiple times to better understand, your own resilience and understand too the resistance that comes along with navigating this in between. So I was thinking about this, and honestly, I was in a bit of a pit of despair, you could say, because I was feeling broken by what I'll call a perceived rejection. Now, there have been multiple things, and I'm just going to get into it. So, with my 9 to 5 last year, it was kind of mutual, but because of the hurricane, I wasn't able to work, right? And so that felt like a rejection. I have been trying to have new podcast guests on, and the scheduling hasn't worked out, or for whatever reason, it just hasn't been syncing up. I've been trying to figure out a way to get to the beach because I love the beach, but it just has not been working out. I've been trying to get part time jobs to have consistent income as I build my business. That has not been working out. I have been trying to host events to build community in person and online. Not working out. Not as I imagined. And maybe even this piece of trying to connect with more clients. Okay. So, like, all of these things, I have been feeling this sense of rejection. I'm just going to be honest. And whenever I was thinking about all of those, I realized the common denominator between all of those is that I had some sense of resistance to each of them, even though I wanted all of those things. So that was a light bulb moment. And you might be realizing this too as I'm expressing this, like the things that you have felt maybe rejected by, or, they're not working out, or you're feeling stuck for some reason. Maybe there is a sense of resistance towards those. I started to question, like, why do I need these particular things to happen so badly? For me, they bring up the parts of me that really want to be seen and held. And maybe they also reflected the parts of me that I didn't want to see at all. Maybe where I felt weak and vulnerable, where I felt out of control, where I felt rejected or not good enough, where I felt disappointed or got my hopes up, or maybe even before I was rejected, it's this sense of like waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's like not even allowing myself to hope for the best because I think something's going to go wrong. And the thing is, it's not about these opportunities, these situations making me feel rejected. It was really me already feeling in those ways, and it was just being reflected back to me in those particular experiences. And that's the tension. That's the tension of being able to see the reality and the truth of the situation that I was looking at. So, what did I do? And what can we do when we're faced with this, right? So, there's kind of like 5 steps here. 1, feel the pain. Feel the pain of feeling unseen, unheard, not appreciated, feeling like whatever hard work you're putting in doesn't really matter because you're just going to get rejected. Like, actually feel that, because if we stuff it down and we say, oh, it doesn't matter, I didn't want that anyway, or whatever, like, we're just not aligned. It's like, yeah, but it's okay. It's okay to feel pissed. It's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to cry about it. Like that is helping us move through the stagnant, the old energy that's actually coming from childhood and experiences way before right now. 2 is look at the truth of the situation. It's not really about what didn't work out that's external. It's reflecting to us something internal that is being like, hey, hey, I really need you to look at me. You're feeling rejected right now by this thing because it's saying, why do you need this external thing to validate you when you're already enough and worthy? Are you really validating yourself? Do you really believe in yourself? Do you believe in what you're doing? 3, self-empowerment and aligned decisions. Okay, so in these moments, in these moments, we let ourselves cry, we let ourselves be pissed, we let ourselves feel anything that's coming up because that is the real raw emotion. We're looking at the truth and then we are navigating it in a new way. We're saying, okay, I feel rejected. I know that this is reflecting some truth that I feel about myself deep down. It's not about the external person or the external experience. Now I get to choose differently. Now I get to call my power back from whatever I tried to give my power to this external person or situation in order to validate me. I'm going to pull my power back and validate myself and choose to engage with this situation in a different way. Maybe in the past, I would have felt rejected and maybe I would have stuffed down my emotions, or maybe I would have felt them, but I would have held resentment to those external experiences or people, and I would have placed myself in victim mode and said, well, I'm just not good enough then. Well, no one cares about the work that I'm putting out, or no one cares about my content, or I must not be a good coach, or I must not do this right, so I better stop. There's no point in me moving forward. I am going to take that fear of rejection, or that rejection as validation that I'm not worthy, and I'm going to stop myself right there. That's one way. That's the old way of dealing with it. The new way of dealing with it is saying, okay, I don't like how this feels. This feels like rejection. And I know that this is honestly an incredible opportunity to show up as my next level self, as my next chapter self. Okay. So it's a matter of thinking, how would they deal with this? How would they deal with this? They might say, well, okay, I felt this. Maybe this wasn't an aligned opportunity. Maybe this is telling me I need to go back to the drawing board and try a different approach. Maybe it's telling me to get creative. Maybe it's telling me to not give up. That was just one thing that didn't work out. Maybe that's just saying that, hey, girl, you're actually trying. To be rejected means that you're actually putting yourself out there, and that is a beautiful thing. Keep going. So, approaching this in a new way. 4, look at what's going well. Like in these moments where we feel rejected, we feel this resistance, it can be so helpful and give us a whole new perspective to see, well, what's going right? Because it's so easy to fall into this spiral of, oh no, I got rejected for this, and actually, this didn't go well either. But let's zoom out and realize, hey, you put yourself out there. And actually, you sent that email that you felt a little nervous about sending, but you did it. And actually, someone reached out to you this week to collaborate on something. Like these little things, and especially the positive things, we sometimes just glaze over, or maybe we think it's like pure luck or something. And it's like, no, those are as valid, if not more valid, than the times where we feel like we failed. So, gaining that perspective by zooming out and really looking at what's going well for you. And then the 5th thing is just taking one step at a time. Literally, it's like, instead of trying to do it all, like, I listed my whole thing about events and trying to find a part-time job and going to the beach and podcast guests and clients. It's like, girl, maybe you're trying to do too much. Maybe you're doing too much. Maybe it's worth looking at the priorities and seeing how you can focus on one thing at a time and taking one intentional action step at a time that will help you get closer to your goals. I think, actually thinking through this now, it's like wanting all of these things externally to validate where I am and to let me know, oh, you are in your next chapter and you're not in this liminal space and waiting room. And, you know, you can forego this feeling of being uncomfortable and being in the unknown. It's like, no, girl, you're meant to be in this space. You're meant to be uncomfortable, because when we're uncomfortable, that's when the shift happens. Otherwise, nothing would be changed. Nothing would be different. So, in these moments of resistance, rejection, and liminal spaces, it's so important for us to Take some deep breaths. Know that this is part of the process to be a little uncomfortable. And this is honestly where we are building this deep sense of self trust within ourselves. Because if we're in these spaces, we have no idea. We have no idea where the path is leading us necessarily. We know where we're trying to go, but maybe we don't have that external validation yet. But when we are building that trust with ourselves that says, okay, I'm going to continue waking up each day and trying my best. And I am going to step into my own position of authority over my own life. I am not going to let these external rejections, the fear, the shame or the guilt, all of that, I'm not letting that be the driver. I'm not letting that be the driver. I am putting myself in the driver's seat. And that is when things start to click. That is when you're building that trust, you're building that confidence, you're continuing to show up for yourself and your greater vision, regardless of the external outcomes. And honestly, when we can surrender into that, it's like time begins to move faster. You begin to move into your next timeline, into your next chapter, because you are bringing the future into the now. Why? Because time flies when you are present. The only time we actually have is right now. So that's why, when we're in these liminal spaces, it's like we're not trying to rush the process. But when we can surrender into what the reality is and being able to not focus on trying to change where you're at in an instant, just being present with where you're at right now, it changes everything. It's like it's pretty amazing, honestly, because as soon as you start to surrender, things start to change. So this resistance, okay? So going back to those opportunities, I was saying that some of those opportunities were things that I wanted. Well, I guess all of them in theory I wanted. So okay. So let's kind of talk about these. Let's talk about the opportunities, my true feelings about them, the results of what happened, and like in hindsight, what was really going on. Actually, let's jump into okay, for it's like half of the opportunities I really did want, but I was resisting because of fear. I was not trusting my own value or my worth. I was focused on what I needed to get out of this situation. I felt like I had a lack of confidence, clarity, or leadership. I started to think about the what ifs and the unknowns about the situation. And I was feeling vulnerable to be seen, heard, and not met in those situations, even though I wanted them. So that's one half. The other half were things that honestly I didn't really want, but I was resisting them because I felt this sense of obligation. So I was kind of like not really caring enough to fully engage with those opportunities. I was feeling a little bit stifled and controlled through those situations, I was feeling a lack of full alignment within my own personal values and just an overall lack of like inspiration or resonance. So I want this, but I'm scared. I don't really want this, and I feel obligated to do it anyway. So between those, there's like a sense of tension. There's that resistance, and we things end up falling through. Things end up falling through. And it's because of this inner resistance. And when we have these things we feel like we should be doing, we feel an obligation to follow through with or make happen for whatever reason, we need to go back to the drawing board until it's a hell yes. We got to get clear on what our boundaries are, what our needs actually are, and what actually feels out of bounds for what we actually want and need. And then if it's fear, we are going to notice what comes up for us and why. Like, are there ways that we can show up for ourselves to reflect readiness, commitment, growth, pure intention, not, oh, I need this to happen because I need to get X, Y, or Z from it, and our ability to actually receive. Because if we feel we're not worthy of receiving, or it's uncomfortable for us to truly receive support or abundance, that's resistance as well. So, both of these scenarios really require patience while we're in this waiting room, while we're in this liminal space between our two chapters. And the thing is, not trying to force action and change to happen, but really being present with the moment, being present with the feelings and the emotions that are coming up. And honestly, the more that we do that, like the more we realize we are closer to our next chapter uh, than we thought we were. So that's what I have. Honestly, I feel like so many of us are navigating this space of, wow, we've been transforming a lot, maybe over the past several years even, and we we know our next chapter is so close, and it can feel so uncomfortable because there are remnants of our past that we're still shedding and letting go of. But this is such a sacred part of the process to be able to witness witness this and hold space for this. I mean, it's like we wouldn't be reading a book and skip the last few pages of a chapter. Like that's when that's when some crucial details, some crucial parts of the plot and the arc are usually introduced. So let's be present as we are navigating this time in between. And I just know that the more that we can be present with maybe this uncomfortable feeling and this resistance towards, you know, shedding and reworking what we feel obligated to do and being open to receiving the things that we want that maybe have some sense of fear around them. Like the more that we can sit with that uncomfortable feeling, the more we're going to build our self-trust and be able to grow from this and be able to get into our next chapter and our next level self. So all this to say, we are exactly where we are meant to be right now. I fully believe that, but I know it can be I know it can be a challenge. I know it can be a challenge. So I am sending you love and the best vibes as you work through your own personal journey. And yeah, I hope today's episode was helpful, and we'll see you next time. Bye.